you have answers. You don't just complain.
That's correct.
What's the answer to this, Charlie? What are we going to do?
I think we need a national recovery program. I think there needs to be an intergenerational apology.
Wow. What does that look like?
I think grandparents need to apologize to their grandkids and make it right. We need to make home ownership easier. We need getting married easier. Having kids easier. Those are the three things that create a conservative country. Buying property and owning property, getting married, and having children. Those three things are out of reach for most young college graduates. So what happens? They become really, really radical quickly. You don't own anything. What do you want to conserve? You don't have a kid. What do you want to pass down? You're not married. What are you trying to actually protect? And so there needs to be a national recovery program. I'm not talking about free stuff. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the two words that are uniquely American: earned success. Allow 28-year-olds that were lied to and scammed through the college cartel, through the lockdowns that were unnecessary, through the vaccine mandates and Zoom and Skype work, another shot.
Wow.
That's what I'm proposing.
Wow. Charlie, you just had a rather large event in Phoenix. What do you call that event? And tell me who participates. How large was it this year? I just saw flashes of it on Fox News. Tell me a little bit about it.
It's called America Fest. It was really awesome. We had over 12,000 people go through the entire event. We're hoping it's going to be even bigger next year. It's a celebration of the country. We believe America is the greatest nation ever to exist in the history of the planet.
So you believe in American exceptionism?
Oh, without a doubt. And I own it. We are an exceptional nation, exceptional people, exceptional story. And let's talk about why we're exceptional. Well, we're the first nation ever, where our people who founded the country voluntarily gave up power. Wow. It's never happened before. The people who wrote the Constitution got less powerful when they wrote it. It's never happened before. We're the only country where you could say we have a date and a birthday. Not at the time. For example, what is China's birthday? They're like, I don't know, like 600 BC. Okay, that's not very specific. Like, what's France's birthday? I don't know, they kind of came up. But the fact we have a date's a big deal. Why? Because we made specific moral claims. We said that when in the course of human events it is necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands that ties the one to the other, the separate but equal station, it goes on to say the laws of nature and nature's God. That's a big deal. And we made moral claims of that. And with 55 of the 56 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Bible-believing, church-attending Christians. We're the most charitable, generous, productive, open-minded, accepting country in the history of the planet. So yeah, I think we're exceptional.
That's awesome. I want to do this. I want to show our audience some clips from your last big agenda there. So let's watch this. You're going to enjoy this.
For students here at Turning Point USA's America Fest, you can watch daily magazine.
You guys are the front line of freedom, of liberty, of justice.
This is the greatest nation on earth.
Fight for the last best hope on earth.
America is our home.
America is our home. It is a gift we get to live in America. That's the only thing we're here for, is to save America. What's going on, Phoenix?
So when we talk about believers and standing up for our rights, What does the Bible say about getting involved? I know you touched on it, but what should we do? I mean, it's more specifically, what should we biblically do as believers?
Yeah, and some people believe that the church or Christian should not comment ever about local politics or about being a citizen. They say, all we do is the gospel and we don't get engaged in those sorts of things. Well then, there's a lot of verses that they're going to have to explain with that sort of a position. Jeremiah 29:7, demand the welfare of the nation or the city of which you are in, because your welfare is tied to your nation's welfare. That's the Lord speaking in Jeremiah 29:7. Now, in every church you'll go to, you'll probably hear Jeremiah 29:11, which is one of the most quoted scriptures, for I know the plans I have laid in front of you. But rarely do you hear about Jeremiah 29:7, which is a commandment to care about what's happening in the local nation or city. Not to mention Daniel, Esther, Mordecai, Nehemiah, Jeremiah, and let's just focus on Daniel in particular. Daniel fasted and prayed for the well-being of the nation that he was in. And so Daniel was faced with a choice that the American church was faced with, that Steve Smotherman was faced with, that Legacy Church was faced with. It was the Daniel trial. And I'll tell you, before we go any further, 98% of American churches failed the Daniel trial. And the Daniel trial was very clear. In Daniel 6, there was a conspiracy, a legitimate conspiracy, kind of launched against Daniel, where I forget the names of certain individuals that then lobbied King Nebuchadnezzar, basically saying, we don't like this Daniel guy, he has too much influence, kind of like the American church, isn't it? And we don't like what they're doing, so we're going to pass a series of measures that are in defiance to Old Testament commandments from the Torah, and Daniel's going to have to choose whether or not to obey God or to obey this government edict. And one of the orders was that you are not able to pray in a certain capacity, especially in public and facing the city. So Daniel hears about this, and the scriptures tell us that Daniel was grieved by it, but then Daniel made a conscious decision. Daniel opened up the window for all to see, and he intentionally disobeyed the government and the king's orders, and he prayed to the city for all the people to see. So that was an act of what would be first called Old Testament civil disobedience. That's the equivalent of you being here at church tonight. Now, all of you know the story of Daniel in the lion's den. That's how he got in the lion's den. We don't always talk about that. Like, oh yeah, he's in the lion's den and God delivered him from that. And of course, that's the other part of the story, is that God will never forsake his children when you obey his commands. And that's a very important thing.
I'm back with my special guest, Charlie Kirk.